Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really zeroing in on competency models.
Yeah, what they are, how they actually work day to day, and why they're so important across so many different industries.
Exactly. You can think of them as like the blueprint for success in a role, right? Outlining the abilities, the behaviors, knowledge, skills, all that stuff that impacts performance.
And their main purpose, well, it's really about making expectations super clear.
Right? And guiding development, informing decisions like hiring, promotions.
Absolutely. And we pulled together a really interesting mix of sources for this. We're looking at engineering, software development, marketing, sales, HR.
And even broader leadership stuff, too. It shows how wide-ranging this idea really is.
It does. What's striking is how, diverse fields are all tackling the same basic question.
Yeah.
How do we define and measure what good actually looks like?
So our mission for this deep dive is basically to boil down the key insights from all this material.
Yeah, to help you understand why these models matter and, importantly, how they're changing, how they're evolving.
Okay, so let's start with the basics then. When we talk about a competency model, what are the main building blocks?
Well, drawing from what we saw, especially in that deal FAQ, a typical model has, broadly speaking, three core parts.
Okay.
First, you've got the key competencies. These are the specific skills, knowledge areas, workplace behaviors that are seen as essential.
For a specific role or maybe a team?
Exactly. Things like, problem solving, technical skills, collaboration, and crucially, these should really connect back to the company's core values and strategic goals.
Right, so it's not just a wish list. It's tied to what the business is actually trying to do. What's the second piece?
The second bit is proficiency levels. This is basically the rating scale. How well does someone actually do the competency?
Okay, like beginner, intermediate, expert, that kind of thing.
Precisely. Or foundational to mastery. It allows for a more nuanced look at where someone is now and where they could potentially go, helps track development.
Makes sense. You need to gauge mastery. And the third part?
The third part is behavioral indicators. These are the specific, observable actions that show a skill level.
So turning the abstract into something concrete.
Exactly. They give real examples of what proficiency looks like in practice. So instead of just saying good communication, an indicator might be clearly articulates complex ideas in team meetings or writes well-structured reports. Makes assessment much easier.
Yeah, I can see that. It moves it from just a concept to something you can actually see someone do.
Okay, now it gets really interesting seeing how different industries apply this. Let's look at engineering first. You'd expect something pretty structured there, right?
Absolutely. And the U.S. Department of Labor's engineering competency model is a great example. It's very structured, a 5-tier pyramid.
A pyramid, okay. What's at the bottom?
The base, tier 1, is all about personal effectiveness competencies. Foundational stuff, like reading, writing, critical thinking, the basics you need everywhere.
Got it. Skills essential for pretty much any engineering role. What's built on top of that? Tier 2 is academic knowledge. So your mathematics, your science principles, technology foundations, the core theoretical understanding.
Okay, the book smarts, essentially, and then applying that knowledge.
That's tier 3, workplace competencies. Things like teamwork, client focus, planning, organizing, creative thinking, and of course, problem solving.
Right.
And what's interesting here is they explicitly include business fundamentals. Even in technical roles, you need that business context.
That's a really key point. Engineers aren't just in a vacuum, so Tier 4 must be the more hardcore engineering skills.
You got it. Tier 4 covers industry-wide technical competencies, engineering principles, design, manufacturing, construction knowledge, ethics.
Ethics, interesting.
Yeah, and also business, legal, and public policy. Again, that broader view. Plus, sustainability, safety, health, security, environmental considerations. It's pretty comprehensive.
Wow, so it's not just about building things, but building them responsibly. And the top, the peak of the pyramid.
Tier 5 focuses on industry sector functional areas. This is where it gets really customizable for specific engineering fields within a company or sector.
So you can tailor it.
Exactly. And right at the very top, they also slot in management competencies, staffing, budgets, and those really specific occupation requirements for certain roles.
It sounds incredibly thorough, but also flexible. Who really benefits from a model like this?
Well, according to the source, it's useful for a lot of people. Industry leaders, HR folks can use it to spot skill gaps, plan training.
Okay.
Educators can align their courses with what the industry actually needs. Workforce pros, career counselors can guide people. And obviously, engineers themselves, current or future, can see what's needed to succeed.
Right, a roadmap for their careers. Okay, let's shift gears from physical engineering to, well, the digital world software engineering. What do models look like there?
The Bradford-Foltz model is a really good example for software folks. It's less of a pyramid, more like 8 competency groups spread across 7 distinct career levels.
7 levels, from like entry level to senior.
Yeah, from software engineer right up to senior principal engineer. What's really useful is how it explicitly links competencies to those career stages. Often that progression path is fuzzy. This makes it clearer.
That clarity must be really helpful for engineers planning their growth. What are those 8 competency groups?
They cover a good range. Software design and implementation, obviously. Team collaboration and advising others. Ownership and accountability.
Okay, standard stuff so far.
Then brand and relationships, how they interact with product teams, business folks, innovation, people management as they get more senior, self-direction, and again, business acumen. That keeps popping up.
It really does seem like even in super technical roles, those softer skills and business understanding are just crucial now.
Absolutely. And the Foltz model gets specific too. Each competency has behavioral indicators across 5 mastery levels, from basic to exceptional.
Wow.
And it clearly states the expected career level for each mastery level. So it's a really practical guide for development.
You can literally see, okay, I'm here to get to the next level. I need to demonstrate these behaviors. Very clear. All right, let's jump to a totally different field again, marketing.
Yeah, marketing often distinguishes between sort of fundamental business skills relevant to everyone and then the more specialized marketing techniques.
Right.
Those fundamental ones highlighted include things like action and result orientation, embracing change, commercial awareness, ethics, good judgment, innovation, organizational awareness, planning, project management.
This sounds pretty universal, actually. Useful almost anywhere.
They really are. And the point is, marketers need that solid business foundation no matter their specialty. But of course, the level expected changes.
Yeah, a junior assistant isn't going to need the same commercial awareness as a marketing director.
Exactly. Proficiency scales with career stage and responsibility.
Makes total sense. Okay, how about sales? That's so focused on interaction and relationships.
The Canadian Professional Sales Association, the CPSA, they use a model with concentric circles, different layers of competency.
Concentric circles. Okay,
Yeah.
Different approach. What are the core areas?
It focuses on 4 main things: sales planning strategy, territory management, building and leading the sales team recruitment, managing performance,
Right, the leadership aspects.
coaching for sales, success, developing individuals, and supporting the sales cycle processes, client relationships.
Seems like a good overview of sales leadership.
It is. And they make a really important distinction, too, between performance indicators, the tangible actions a leader takes.
What they actually do.
Right. And knowledge indicators, the underlying theory, the understanding, the why behind the actions, both are seen as absolutely critical.
So it's not just doing, it's knowing why you're doing it. Okay, we've seen some great industry examples. Let's broaden out now and talk about leadership competencies specifically. These seem vital everywhere, especially as people move up.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen how models work in specific sectors, but now let's zoom out. What makes an effective leader across different fields?
Yeah.
And this is where that AIH article really comes in handy. They stress that leadership competencies have to align with the organization's big picture, the vision, the strategy.
That alignment piece again seems critical.
It really is. When leaders have the right skills, it's a huge competitive edge. And remember, a leader's value isn't just their own output, it's the team's success.
Good point. So why is it so vital for companies to actually define and, actively develop these leadership competencies?
Well, AIHR lays out some key reasons. Good leadership inspires and motivates people. That drives collaboration, innovation, productivity.
The ripple effect.
Exactly. It's fundamental to overall organizational success, creating a positive environment. Strong leaders are also great at building relationships, internal teams, external stakeholders, customers, vital for the long haul. Plus, these skills help leaders make smarter, more strategic decisions, weighing different views, thinking through outcomes. And finally, leadership skills are crucial for navigating change, managing uncertainty.
Which is constant now, right?
Absolutely, more than ever. So are there different types or categories of leadership skills companies focus on?
Yes, SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management, they group them into 3 main buckets.
Okay.
Leading the organization, things like managing conflict, decision-making, leading change. Then, leading others, emotional intelligence, coaching, building an inclusive team.
Right, the people side.
And finally, leading the self. Self-management, courage, adaptability, continuous learning.
That's a neat framework. Organization, others, self, covers the different spheres of influence. Are there specific competencies that are really, really important right now?
AIHR highlights quite a few. Social intelligence, that knack for understanding social situations and cues, huge predictor of effectiveness.
Makes sense.
Problem solving, obviously analyzing complex issues, finding solutions, conflict management, smoothing disagreements constructively, building stronger teams.
Always needed.
Decision making, knowing when to decide alone, consult, or delegate. That's core. And of course, setting and sharing a compelling vision, giving people direction, inspiration.
Painting that picture of the future. Yeah. What else is critical?
Change management, helping teams navigate transitions. So important now. Innovation, fostering creativity, allowing people to learn from mistakes. That drives progress.
You need that psychological safety for innovation.
Absolutely. Entrepreneurship, that proactive, opportunity-seeking mindset, also key. Then there's coaching ability and trustworthiness. Developing others, but also building that trust through being authentic, logical, empathetic.
Trust seems like the absolute bedrock, doesn't it?
It really is. The article also calls out inclusiveness, creating that environment where everyone feels they belong and can contribute fully.
And that involves specific behaviors.
Yeah, HBR mentioned traits like visible commitment to diversity, humility, awareness of bias, curiosity about others, cultural intelligence, fostering collaboration across differences. Then there's people management training, motivating, giving clarity and support day to day.
It's a long list, but when you break it down, it all feels essential for leading well today.
We're almost there. Also crucial, learning agility, adapting quickly to new things, industry knowledge, staying current. Managing yourself, workload, emotions, courage, making tough calls, sticking to values.
Standing for something.
Right. And finally, organizational citizenship behavior, going the extra mile, altruism, courtesy, conscientiousness, contributing positively beyond the job description.
Wow. Okay, that paints a really full picture of modern leadership. Now, implementing these models, it sounds great, but I imagine there are challenges.
Oh, definitely. The Training Magazine article highlighted several common ones. A big one is treating competency management just as an HR task, not a core business priority.
Ah, so it gets siloed.
Exactly. It is not seen as driving business results. It doesn't get the focus or the funding it needs. It needs exec buy-in.
Right. What's another hurdle?
Just identifying the really critical competencies and especially trying to predict future needs, that's tough.
Future-proofing is hard.
Very. Without a solid way to assess and forecast, you're kind of guessing which skills will matter down the line.
What else trips companies up?
Weak alignment between development efforts and actual business strategy. If you don't know your key roles or talent segments, your training might miss the mark.
Like training for the wrong race, as you said.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And resources. Surprisingly, even when companies say people are key, investment in competency management sometimes gets cut or deprioritized.
That seems counterintuitive.
It does. Another issue. Models often ignore or downplay technical skills, even when they're essential for the business. Big blind spot. And finally, a lot of these models are still just on paper. Hard to track, hard to integrate, hard to use effectively day to day. That stat, 69% of organizations finding their efforts only somewhat or not effective, that says a lot.
Yeah, nearly 70%.
Yeah.
It's not great. So given all that, if companies do get it right, what are the payoffs? What are the real benefits?
When it's done well, strategically, the benefits are significant. You get a much clearer shared understanding of what good performance looks like. Clear targets for everyone.
Sets the standard.
Right. It massively improves talent planning. You get data on your skills now and future, so you can mitigate risks proactively.
So a better handle on the overall talent picture. What else?
It optimizes development and internal moves. You can create competency-based training that actually addresses gaps and preps people for their next role.
Targeted development.
Exactly. It strengthens the talent pipeline, easier to spot who's ready for bigger things.
Sure.
It improves operational efficiency, too, by focusing training money where it's needed, cutting out waste.
Makes sense.
And ultimately, it integrates all your talent processes, hiring, onboarding, performance, promotions, around a common language and framework.
Those are definitely some solid advantages, it sounds like. Done right, it really can weave through the whole organization. Okay, looking ahead now, what are the big trends? How is leadership development changing? What competencies are becoming even more critical?
That Future Trends white paper has some really interesting points. It talks a lot about the VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous,
We hear that acronym a lot.
and it demands different leadership skills.
Hmm.
More adaptability, self-awareness, boundary spanning, connecting different groups, collaboration, network thinking, strategic thinking, and just being more comfortable with ambiguity.
So less command and control, more navigating complexity.
Precisely. And there's a fascinating shift mentioned from just horizontal development, learning new skills, filling the glass,
Adding more knowledge.
right, to also include vertical development, which is more about expanding the glass itself, changing how you make sense of the world, handling more complexity.
That's a powerful metaphor. So not just learning more, but learning differently, evolving your thinking.
Exactly. They reference Keegan's stages of adult development, socialized, self-authoring, self-transforming. Moving through those stages helps leaders tackle complex challenges.
And you mentioned not many managers are at that top self-transforming level.
Yeah, the research suggests it's relatively low, which points to a need to foster that deeper kind of growth. Think of someone socialized, acting based on others' expectations, self-authoring, having their own internal compass, and self-transforming, being able to hold multiple perspectives, adapt fluidly. You see it in leaders who juggle complex stakeholder needs or pivot strategy effectively.
That could explain why some leaders thrive in complexity and others struggle. What other trends are shaping things?
A big one is shifting more ownership for development to the individual.
Less top-down from HR or the manager.
Right. Empowering people to drive their own growth. It borrows from executive coaching principles. Individual choice, customization, personal ownership, the coach as a guide, not the expert telling you what to do.
So individuals become active agents in their development.
Exactly. We're also seeing the decline of the heroic leader idea. It's
Ugh.
moving towards collective leadership, leadership within networks.
More distributed.
Yeah. Innovation is seen as emerging from connections in the network, not just from one person at the top. Leadership becomes a process shared across the network. This needs conditions like open information flow, flexible hierarchies, distributed decision-making, looser controls.
A more agile networks approach.
Definitely. And finally, the paper really pushes for more innovation in how we develop leaders. The methods need to keep up with the changing world. Experiment. Share what works.
So companies need to get creative about development itself. Okay, we've covered a ton of ground. What competency models are, industry examples, leadership skills, challenges, benefits, future trends. How do we pull this all together? What's the practical advice for making these models actually work?
The Egon Zehnder article had some good advice on avoiding competency fatigue. They stressed that good competencies do link to effectiveness and engagement. They mentioned Google seeing a 20% jump in job satisfaction, possibly linked to this.
So there is a payoff.
Yes, but key is tailoring the model to your specific culture and strategy. It has to fit, and that tailoring needs to start right at the top.
Customization and leadership buy-in again. Not one size fits all.
Definitely not. They also suggest maybe 5-6 core, scaled competencies for deep assessment, but a simpler version for everyday use in hiring, performance reviews. Keep it manageable.
Practicality matters.
And while past behavior is a good predictor, you also need to assess potential capacity for growth.
Look forward as well as back. How do you embed this in the culture? Make it stick.
Encourage storytelling. Get people sharing examples of competencies in action. Celebrate decisions, promotions, assignments that are clearly based on competencies. And you need measurement, feedback loops, track how it's being used and the impact it's having.
Make it visible and trackable.
And the Clemmer Group article pointed out common failure points. No clear link to business results. Too many competencies, focusing only on weaknesses, not strengths, using them to judge, not develop, and confusing the how competency with the what results.
Those sound like easy traps to fall into. What's their fix?
Focus on building maybe 3 to 5 strengths from good to great. Leverage what people already do well, unless there's a fatal flaw you have to fix.
Build on strengths.
Yes. And always evaluate performance results, but use the competency models to help people figure out how to use their strengths to get those results.
So competencies are the how that leads to the what.
Precisely. And just to sum up the core benefits again, London Premier Center puts it nicely. Clear career paths, better hiring, better performance management, targeted development, and a common language for skills across the organization.
Okay, so bringing it all together. Competency models, despite potential challenges, really seem like powerful tools. They align expectations, drive development, boost performance across all sorts of industries.
Absolutely. But their success really hangs on careful design, clear communication, and genuine integration into how the organization actually works. It can't just be a binder on a shelf.
Right. And we're seeing that shift too towards more dynamic individual-driven development and this rise of collective networked leadership.
The landscape is definitely evolving.
So here's something to think about. With change happening so fast and everything getting more complex, how will you use these ideas about competency and development, maybe in your own career, maybe in your organization, to not just cope, but to really thrive? What's your next step to explore this more? Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.